Pedophilia and trafficking are a lot worse problems than most of us think. We're going to get into how this is being normalized in our society and what we can do about it. All that and more on today's Peck Report. Hey, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Josh Peck here. So we definitely have to talk about this. We have to keep talking about this. I know that we've dealt with it quite a bit on Peck Report, and we're going to continue to do so because it's such a serious problem, and it has so many facets around it. The one that I want to deal with mainly here today is the normalization aspect of it. And we'll probably get into some other things too, but you know, most recently this whole WayFair Overstock Amazon thing occurred where there was some overly high prices and there was, you know, some suspicious things where quite a few people thought that there might be a connection to child sex trafficking involved with this. It's still early on. Some of the things ended up being explained, but this is why with these types of things, it's really important to just get all the information before going all in on what we think is the truth. Because what ends up happening a lot of times, more often than not, is well-meaning people who are trying to find the truth. They read something online, or they see a meme, or they see something that seems evil, but it seems real. It seems like it's probably true, and it seems like it's coming from a trusted source. So they share it. They start believing it, and I think that's where this problem happens. They start believing it. So now their perception of the outside world contains this thing that they read, and once it's integrated into somebody's worldview, it's really hard to extract, even if information comes out later that shows the first bit of information is unlikely to be true. It's really hard for people to kind of at that point disengage, because now they have something to lose. You know, now they've invested time into this. They have constructed a piece of their worldview around this one piece of information that they assumed was true. And when it turns out to not be true, it's easier to find fault in the second bit of evidence. You know, it's easier to try and find fault in the new evidence coming in that says that it's not true, because that hasn't been integrated yet. You know, that hasn't been adapted into somebody's worldview. So it's easier to push that off. I've been seeing that a lot lately. Let me just try to think of a brief example. Just a hypothetical. Let's say, I don't know. Let's say you read some story online that says, you know, all elderly people 85 and above are going around and killing people's dogs. You know, I don't know. I'm just making up some crazy thing. There's obviously that's like, there's no truth to that. That's really insane. Nobody's going to believe that if they read that. But you know, if somebody reads that and it seems convincing enough, they might start to think, well, you know, there are old people that seem to have mental decline issues. They have Alzheimer's. Maybe this is possible. Maybe this is a real thing that's happening. You know, maybe just to be on the safe side, I should start bringing my dog in at night, not let him stay in the doghouse in the backyard, at night. Bring him in, and you know, maybe after a while. I know this is like an extreme, ridiculous case, but example. But just using this as an example, after a while, you know, they. And it doesn't take long. It could take, you know, in fractions of a second of reading a headline, they can start to integrate this into their worldview. But all of a sudden, now, the person who read that headline, now they are, as far as they are concerned, they live in a world where this happens, where there's a problem with elderly people going around and hurting people's dogs. And that's part of their world now. That's an issue they have to deal with, and it also gives them kind of a purpose or a mission. You know, it gives them something that they have to contend against. So, you know, they start doing things or posting things about it. They do some more research. You know, they start finding out, you know, Alzheimer's is on the rise for people 80 and above, so it really seems to add up. It really seems to make sense. They find studies saying that for some reason dogs seem to be more afraid at night than they are during the day. I wonder what that's all about. And you can start to see how these connections can be made. But then what happens is there comes some evidence to suggest that this isn't the case. There's evidence to, a claim comes out saying, well, most people that old are in, well taken care of nursing homes and they're not allowed to leave at night. So how are they getting out? And then the person who believes that this is the world that they live in, they hear that and they say, well, no, that's not true. Who's to say they couldn't get out? Who's to say that this can't be happening? Who are you to say that this is impossible? And all of a sudden they instead of taking in the new evidence and thinking, well, I guess that makes sense. Maybe we should explore that possibility that it's not happening. Maybe we should explore that as vigorously as we explored the original hypothesis or the original belief that old people are killing dogs. So and it's because that conflicting evidence, it's not integrated into their worldview. It actually conflicts with their worldview. So to even entertain that as a possibility, it means that they might have to, there's a possibility they might someday have to admit that they wasted some time looking into something and believing something and even altering their life in some way, believing in something that just flat out just turns out it wasn't true, So that is something that we have to overcome if we want to be honest. And it is like a muscle. It's something that, you have to work out over time and you get better at it. And, you're probably never going to be perfect at it, but it is something that just part of being a mature adult and part of being a researcher, especially in these fields where there's so much conflicting information, there's so much that isn't known. This is a skill that we absolutely need to develop, especially as Christians. We need to develop this skill. And all it means is that you take some extra time to look into both sides of an issue when something comes up. So, for example, the most recent case with the WayFair Amazon thing. Now, when that came out, and if you're not familiar with it, basically what happened is, just a few days ago, people started posting how on especially Wayfair, but other outlets, other online retail, international, outlets, they would have these listings for furniture or children's photo albums that were just ridiculous prices, like $13,000 or whatever, for something that shouldn't have cost that much. And a theory kind of developed around that maybe this is actually a front, and maybe this is a way for traffickers to sell children to pedophiles. And so that kind of developed, and basically most of the evidence was through memes, and it was through interpreting things like pictures that, when you have a picture, all is just what's in the picture. You don't have the context around it. That's something that you need to search for. But what a lot of people do is they'll look at the picture and they'll just interpret it immediately. So now I'll admit there were some very strange things with the Wayfair thing. A lot of things that I still don't have an answer to. When I first saw that, I was like, okay, this is very odd. And so I posted online my thoughts about it, where basically there's definitely some strange things going on here, but at the same time, I don't know enough about international online retail. I don't know how SKU numbers work. I don't know. I really don't know enough about any of this to understand, enough, to know that there's something nefarious going on. Because a part of it, too, was you take the SKU number of a product, of one of these suspicious products, and you would put it in, I think it was called Yandex. It was a Russian search engine. You put the number with SRC USA in it. You would search for that, and then it would bring up all these pictures of young girls. Now, I even tried this myself. The pictures themselves weren't pornographic, but they were pictures of young girls, some of them in kind of skimpy clothes that I wouldn't let my own daughter wear. And so that was strange, and I tested that myself, and that was true. The weird thing is, though, it was only that one search engine, and it was only if you had SRC USA. If you took out SRC and just did USA in the number, it brought up like just jerseys or something. And I might be mixing some of these up, but I did a couple different experiments, but it was like soccer jerseys. And then if you just put up like SRC and not USA and then the number, then it was like a bunch of pictures of like cleats, like shoes, like soccer cleats or something. And so that was weird. And then somebody else online said that if you put Mexico in, it'll bring up the girls too. And at that point I was busy with other things. I didn't have a chance to experiment with that and see what that brought up. But there was questions about it, but it also wasn't super consistent. So I like I said, I posted about it and I said something along the lines of, I don't know enough about online international online retail to really know if this is normal or if maybe there's some explanation. I don't know enough about it. And I saw very few people take that stance. Most people said, no, this is actually confirmed. This is absolutely confirmed child sex trafficking. Look, the CEO of WayFair stepped down. Part of me was thinking, well, just because if he knew that, okay, if there was some sex trafficking thing coming up and he knew that it was going to get revealed, him stepping down from the company would not absolve him of any criminal wrong. He would still get in trouble. Like he would still. Now, if he fled, if he went to a different country or something, then that might be suspicious, but it still wouldn't be conclusive. So that's what I'm getting at. There was just a lot of stuff that wasn't conclusive. And then this got into Tom Hanks, and he had a picture of a glove on a sidewalk, and then in chalk written on the sidewalk, it said SRC USA, which I think that just means source USA. It's the country, it's the source country. So if you have a product, and I'm this is a guess, okay, I don't know, but what makes sense to me is, a SKU number, that's what, 7 or 8 numbers. Of all the millions of products that's out there, I mean, eventually it seems like you would have repeating SKU numbers. So maybe it's split up by country. So when you look up a SKU number, you have to tell the search engine what the source of the number, what country are you looking for this specific number? What product, what's the source country for the product or for the number that you're looking at? Kind of like telephone numbers, how every country has a code, every so maybe the code for this is SRC and then the country of origin for that product. That makes sense to me. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's what's going on. Again, I haven't had time to do extensive research into this. Nor has anybody else, by the way, because while some people, even if they've spent every waking hour doing nothing but research since this broke, it's only been maybe a week. It hasn't been that long. So there's a lot that's not known. The main point, so many people went full in. This is child sex trafficking. It's absolutely confirmed now. This is exactly what it is. And they did not entertain any other possibility of what else this might be. I heard from some people that sometimes when a retailer only has one product of something, they will jack up the price so they can keep their listing until they can order new product. Because if they sell the last one, then it's marked as sold out, and they could lose their listing placing online. And so they'll jack up the price. I actually was told this by a retailer. So a couple of them actually. So I guess that's kind of a normal thing. That makes sense to me. Why does it bring up pictures of girls? Only for specific things too. It's not all of the things. It's only specific things. I don't know. Could it be that it's that specific search engine is looking up the target audience of that product, of a kid's photo album, and it's just going to bring up, because the one that I looked up, it was a photo album that was clearly designed for a girl, and it said it was $13,000. I didn't at this time. I didn't know about the retail thing, so I didn't look to see how many it said were available. But is it? But it was obviously made for a girl that was 6 or 7 years old. Is it possible that that search engine just brings up whatever the target audience for that thing, for that product is? Because when you put a product in, I don't know with Wayfair, but I know with some things you have to put in what your target audience is, or you do that in the SEO search things. You have to put in what your target audience is for a post. Like if you've ever bought like a Facebook ad, you have to put in what your target audience is. You have to put in what audience you're looking for. It doesn't just go broadly to everybody. So is it possible that for some reason that search engine is looking up the target audience? I have no clue. I really don't know. But that's the point that I'm getting at is we don't know. And it's possible that like all of this stuff could be explained innocently. It could be. But it's rare to find somebody that will even at least admit that. Could it be all nefarious? Yes. This absolutely could definitely be. It could be possibly all a front for child sex trafficking. I would not put it past pedophiles to do something like that, to set something like that up. Could it all be innocent, instead? Sure. I haven't found really many people that are taking a balanced approach with it. They're all in, and then they'll get angry at people like me who are just trying to look at it logically or just trying to be fair with it. They'll get angry at people like me because they'll say, well, you're just denying that it's even happening. You're just a denier. It's not the case at all. Why this is such a big deal is I believe it really hurts our credibility when we're willing to just believe anything and not even consider the other side, or not even try to consider alternative options. Because once we decide to believe this thing, it's ingrained, it's part of our worldview now, and then it's really hard to extract. And most people just won't do it. Even if a bunch of evidence comes out in support of something else, they'll just stick with their original theory. Most people do that. It's a very immature thing, but that's what happens. And I believe that really hurts our credibility. And if we're serious about wanting to end child sex trafficking in America, and it absolutely does happen, we need to show that we are credible sources of information. Otherwise, all we're handing the world an excuse. Here's an excuse you can use. You don't have to get involved. You can just think that we're all crazy. Here's an excuse for you. Because all they have to do is they just have to bring this stuff up. Now, what if something actually does happen? What if this Wayfair thing was actually true? A lot of people, it was either it's all crazy, there's nothing going on, or they're all in on the other end. The people who said that it's crazy and nothing is going on, they said, you guys are all conspiracy theorists. You do this every time something looks a little weird. You automatically jump to the most extreme thing, and then you don't have any real reasons beyond memes or somebody said something once, or the Amazon review says, or a supposed former employee tweeted. You just have this stuff. That's not real evidence because anybody can write that stuff. I could go on right now and write a weird Amazon review. I could open up a Twitter account right now under somebody else's name, and I could say that I was a former employee of Wayfair and, I saw these weird things happen there. It's not real evidence. Anybody can do that. And if it's one thing we know about people, they're liars, right? So, but again, does that mean that we ignore it? No, we don't ignore it. We have to properly do our homework, and it takes time. And while we're looking into things and being balanced and trying to find out what's really going on and collecting real evidence, we have to know that it takes time to do that, and we don't need to... We're not required or obligated to have an opinion about something right when we hear it. You can take as much time as you need. There are things that I've been wondering about for years that I just don't have a solid opinion on. And that's okay. It's actually a very honest way to live. And I think that if you live your life like that, people will start to look at you as, okay, if this guy says there's something going on, then there's probably something going on, because usually he's the kind of guy that's like, well, let's be careful. And you want to have that credibility when it comes to something as absolutely serious as child sex trafficking, because there are real kids who are really being abused right now in this country, and it happens more often than many of us think. If we are serious about wanting to help those kids, we have to be credible. We have to be honest. We have to be truthful. We have to be a trusted source of information. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to convince anybody that this is going on, and there's strength in numbers. The only way we're going to end this is by showing the country what's going on. But we can't do that if we're going to fall headfirst into every conspiracy theory that comes along. And we have to realize too, the burden of proof is on us. If we make a claim, the burden of proof is on us to prove that it's true. So this whole, well, how could you say that it's not true? No. The burden of proof is not on the person who's disputing the claim. It's on you who's making the claim. So if you make a claim, or you post a meme, or you claim that something is factual in any capacity, and someone challenges you on that, then the responsibility is on you to provide evidence why you believe what you believe, And I've seen a lot of immaturity in those regards. I've seen a lot of immaturity in people who will just get angry at somebody who would dare to possibly challenge a claim from such a respected individual such as myself. Just people have that attitude. And really, we should appreciate it when people challenge our claims. We should want people to be their own researchers. That's what I've been harping on that for years. Any of you who have followed me long enough know that. I've always been challenging you guys to look into things deeply, challenge my own stuff. I'm not above reproof on this kind of stuff. There have been times where I've accidentally shared a meme or something thinking it was true because, maybe a friend of mine shared it. So I thought, well, he probably looked into it. And I've been wrong. And there have been times where you guys have put in the comment section like, hey, Josh, turns out this actually isn't true at all. And then I'll say, okay, thanks. And then I take it down. I don't ever get personally offended by that. I think that would be such a childish attitude to have, to actually get offended because somebody's trying to, correct a mistake. That's ridiculous. Now, if somebody is actually being a jerk and calling me names over it, I'll probably still take the post down if it's factually wrong, but then I probably won't be super interested in talking to that person again if they're using that as ammunition to bolster themselves up. So, when we correct something, we don't want to do that. We don't want to personally insult. I think it's better to just not be personal at all. Just don't even bring the person into it, unless they do it first, but it's all complicated. But the simplest way is just if you see something wrong online, just post the facts of it, or at least what you can find as the facts, and that's really all it takes. But again, some people don't want to do that, and I think it's because some people are so married to their theories. It's an ego thing, it's a pride thing, that they think it would look badly on them if they were to admit that it's possible they may have made a mistake. But that's wrong. It doesn't look badly on the person at all. It's actually a good thing. It shows that you're honest and mature. People appreciate that, I remember when I first started becoming a writer, somebody asked me, well, what are you going to do? I think it was right after my first book came out. Someone asked me, what are you going to do if, you find out in a couple of years, or you find out later that something you wrote in your book is wrong? What are you going to do? And I said, well, I will just admit that it's wrong, and if somebody asks me about it, I'll try to do a reprint of the book if I can, but if somebody asks me about it, then I'll just say I was wrong. I don't really get why would I have to stay married? I'm obviously human. People know that, People know I'm human. I'm not going to get it right 100% of the time. I'll do the best I can, but I can't. I would be a liar if I said that every single thing I put out there is going to be absolutely 100% true. So, what I try to do is just be careful in my language. I'll say things like, I think this looks suspicious because of these reasons. I don't know for sure yet, but it seems like there could be something here. So that's what I did with the WayFair thing. The more that I've looked into it and the more some of this stuff has been explained, I'm starting to think that probably, given enough time and given enough knowledge into how online international retail works, there's probably an explanation for a lot of it. I still don't know for sure, though. Could be totally nefarious. I don't know. It could be that the pedophiles have covered their tracks so well that it looks innocent, and it's not. I have no idea. But I think it's beneficial for us to all just kind of admit that, and that's okay. That doesn't hurt our cause. That doesn't make us look weak or ineffectual. That doesn't make us look like wimps or that we can't be taken seriously because we never know anything. It makes us look strong and honest and mature, and people will gravitate towards that. Now, the people that are going to hate it are the people who are married to their conspiracies and they don't really care about the kids, and they're more interested in holding on to their pet theories. They're using the child sex trafficking epidemic or the pedophile epidemic as their own kind of, I'm going to use this to make myself look like someone online. Their own thing like that. There are a lot of people like that, and so we have to be really careful. Those people will hate you if you try to just be honest and be careful. They will absolutely hate you. Good. Let them disassociate from you. They are hurting our cause, and we should show that we can disassociate from these people, and we should. We shouldn't be associating with people like that. If we're actually trying to get to the truth in an honest, mature, respectful way, we don't have time to entertain somebody's ego trip. We don't have time to entertain that. So the best thing to do is just be open and honest online. And if people blast you, then that that's a person that you can block or unfriend, or that that's a person that's not really worth talking to because they're not in it for the same reasons that you are. They're in it for themselves, whereas you're in it for somebody else. You're in it to serve people. You're in it to try to honestly help people, no matter how it makes you look. And they're in it for themselves. And you can tell too, because they'll say things. They'll say things to you like, when you do stuff like that, or when you say stuff like that, it really makes you look bad. Who cares? When that's called projection. What they're doing is they're actually exposing what matters to them. So how they look online matters to them, and they assume that everybody's like that. So they'll say, you're making yourself look really bad when you're coming out against this stuff. And it's like, well, that matters to you, but that doesn't really matter to me. And it doesn't. As long as I can be effective without lying, as long as I can be effective and be as truthful as possible, I don't care how I look online. I'm not in this for clout. I'm not clout chasing, and neither should you. Have I always been perfect at that? Absolutely not. I've had my run-ins and I've had my failures before too. I've had my ego trips before too. But that's part of growing up and spiritually maturing, is you got to recognize that about yourself and you got to work on it. We all have that. We all do. We can get better at it. We can vanquish it. But it takes time and it takes work. So like I said before, this is a muscle that we have to develop. And it's not like we live in a society where there's a lack of true information, so we have to jump to these conclusions. I'm gonna go through some real things that are happening, because there's a lot. Actual headlines, real op-eds in mainstream news sources that real people wrote. Apologizing, just basically pedophile apologists. And this stuff is real. This is the stuff we should focus on. And another thing I'll add too, if there was something going on with the WayFair thing, we ruined it by we ruined any chance we had at exposing it by just blasting it all over Facebook and Twitter. I mean, seriously, how dumb, right? I mean, think about this. If you suspect that something is going on, you don't announce that you're suspicious of it. I mean, can you imagine, like, the FBI is going to do some raid? Can you imagine if they just publicly announced that they were suspicious of some company? Just publicly to everybody? Alerting that company that they're suspicious, so giving that company time to clean up their act, to make everything look spiffy. That's what we did. That's what we did by even, and I'm saying we because I talked about it online too. So look, I'm in this camp too. But after I thought about it, I thought, man, we really messed this up. If there was something going on here, we should have kept it to ourselves. Text each other or message each other privately, but not blast it publicly online. And I think the problem is some people were just wanting to help, and so they posted it online publicly. But I think some people knew this would get a lot of clicks. Some people knew that this was going to gain them some clout. They were going to get some followers out of it. They were going to get some more eyeballs on their ads and their articles about it. They were going to get more people following them on Twitter. They were going to get more online clout. And so they blasted this because it benefited them, instead of thinking, if I put this out there, it's going to alert WayFair. If something's going on, it's going to alert them something's going on, and it's going to give them time to clean everything up, to hide everything even more before anything real can be done. What should have happened is we should have talked to each other privately, and we should have alerted the FBI or maybe of our suspicions. We should have looked into it more ourselves, I think, to make sure something was going on. Because I don't entirely trust the FBI or CIA either. I mean, I think like the whole Finders case 30 years ago, I think that's good reason to not totally trust them. But still, they have resources that we don't. We don't have the authority to arrest people or to go in and raid some company because we think something's going on. Same thing happened with Pizzagate. I mean, it's the same thing. It just gave the alleged criminals time to cover their tracks. And for what? Just so we can post it online and show that we know something that other people don't, so we can feel better about ourselves. It's just ridiculous. So if we really want to take this seriously, there are real things that we can look at that I think make the WayFair stuff, make Pizzagate, it makes that stuff look like a distraction, even if there's truth in that. Because while we're busy in conspiracy theory land, and again, I'm not saying that all of it is invalid. There might be something going on there. But all I'm saying is there's not enough available information. It's unsubstantiated. It's impossible to prove. While we're busy over here in conspiracy theory land, there's real, objectively true things that are being said by real, actual authors and doctors that can be verified. They actually said this. They actually believe this. They're teaching this to our kids. And we're not fighting against that. We're not fighting against the actual verified stuff because we're busy in the speculative stuff. And I'm going to show you some examples. Now, one piece of this did start to go viral recently, and it's that TEDx talk of that pedophilia is a natural sexual orientation or something. Now that is real. She said that. Not the claim. The claim is not real. It is not a natural sexual orientation. But that actually happened. That was a real TEDx talk from a real German woman. And I think she's a doctor in something. It got real applause. Like that. I'm glad that went viral. Now, it went viral a couple of years too late because it has been out for a long time. It sort of went a little viral before, and now it's making like a resurgence. But that is something we can focus on. That actually happened. That's real. That was really said. There is a real effort to normalize pedophilia, to make it look like a disorder. And there are people who will actually support that, saying, well, they can't help it. We have to realize it is absolutely impossible to prove that they can't help feeling the way they feel. How could you prove that? You can't crawl inside somebody's head and experience life through their body and through their eyes. Now, they would say, well, you can't prove it's not like that. Again, burden of proof isn't on me. The burden of proof is on the one making the positive claim. So the claim is pedophiles can't help their feelings. They can't help it. Okay, you need to prove that, and it's impossible to prove because that's a totally subjective thing. Because if a pedophile says that they can't help it, well, who's to say they're not lying? They could be lying. Or maybe they're deceived. Maybe they think they can't help it, but they actually can. You know, back when I was alcoholic, I was a big-time alcoholic. I was a drug addict too. I was convinced I couldn't help it. I was convinced I can't help that I like this thing. Now, I would say things, you know, I can help if I do it or not, but I can't help that I love it. I can't help that I love being drunk or I love being high. Now, it's my choice if I'm going to take a drink or not, but I can't help how I feel. It's the same thing these pedophiles say about their attraction to kids. They'll say, like the whole, we'll get into that in a minute, but they'll say, I can help it, you know, some of them will say, I can help if I make the choice to abuse a child, but I would never do that. But I can't help how I feel. Yes, you can. You can learn to hate that stuff. I hate alcohol now. I hate drugs. I don't ever want to get drunk or high again. I hate the whole idea of it. I don't like it anymore. But I used to think I'm always going to like this and it's always going to be a struggle and I can't learn to not like this. That is a lie. You can learn to hate things that you like. I mean, our whole life experience is that. There's a ton of stuff I liked when I was a kid that I hate now. And I would imagine any adults listening are probably thinking the same thing. You know, I used to like the cartoon Captain Planet. I hate it now. You know, it's not something that I would watch now. But that's our whole life experience. You can learn to hate things that you like. You know, you can, and I know there's a difference between, you know, sexual preferences and cartoon characters, but still, it's just a part of the human condition. Liking things and hating things is subjective. You know, you can change that. You can fix that. You can learn to change that. Objective truths are a lot harder to change, and that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make pedophilia into a disorder because then it's like an objective truth, like it's an objective disorder that you can't change. It's just people are born that way. It's like skin color or hair color. I mean, I know you can dye your hair, but genetically, you know, your hair is brown even if you dye it blonde. You know, you might mask it and make it look blonde, but genetically, you know, you're not changing your genetics. So you know what I mean? An objective truth is a lot harder to change. You know, the sky is blue. That's an objective truth. Now, yeah, you could conceivably you could build a giant tinting glass around the sun to make the sky appear red or something, but it's a lot harder to do that than it would be to convince somebody, you know, the actual word for blue isn't really blue, it's red. And then you get the person to say that the sky is red when they're thinking blue. I mean, it's easier to change something subjectively than it is objectively. So you can change preferences. You can change all that stuff. You can make yourself. If there's a food you don't like, you know your taste buds will catch on. You know your taste buds will your taste buds actually change every so often. I forget how often it is, but they actually do change. If you had a food that you just didn't like, now there would be no real reason to do this, but if you had to for some reason, if you had to, if that was the only food that was available, and if you started to like really focus on learning to like that food, you would eventually learn to like it. There are ways that you can learn to like it. You know, start eating it during like positive experiences with your family or something, at like a fun family barbecue or something. You know, so then you associate a memory with it. You can start to learn to like that stuff. Now, of course, there's limits to everything, but when it comes to so there's this whole push to try to get people to say that it's a mental disorder, and because it's a mental disorder, it can't possibly be changed. So I want to show you some headlines because of that. I'm going to give you a couple examples. I'm going to save the extreme ones for members. You know what? I'm not doing members only today. We're going to make this public for everybody. Hang on one second. Sorry. Most of you know I don't normally like to be on my phone when I'm recording these or when I'm doing these, but I have to keep up to date. My son has leukemia. He's been diagnosed with leukemia, so I always have to make sure I have my phone on me in case there's a doctor that texts or calls, or if Christina texts if there's some emergency. Most of the time it's not an emergency, but I always have to make sure I have my phone on me. But anyway, even though I'm doing this one for free, I would highly suggest that you guys go to dailyrenegade.com and get a membership. I'll tell you what, we have lost a ton of members due to this COVID crisis. People are having a harder time affording it, and I get it. I totally understand. But it's a lot harder to run the ministry when we lost so many members. And I don't blame the members. If you can't afford it, you can't afford it. What can you do? So I get it. But if you can afford it, I would suggest go to dailyrenegade.com, become a member today. It really helps us out. It helps support this ministry. We're trying to do everything we can to factually and honestly expose things like child sex trafficking and like so many other things. We even have like really good Bible studies that are factual and grounded. What we're trying to build with Daily Renegade is a place where you can go and you know that you're going to get good information. We talk about weird stuff too. We talk about aliens and Nephilim, and we talk about a lot of weird stuff. We don't shy away from any topic, but we try to be real with the topic. We're also not hardcore skeptics. You know, I don't think that it's a good idea to be so far on the other end where you're just completely skeptical of everything and your automatic first response is to deny it. Because then, again, like it's the same thing. That will get developed into your worldview, and then it'll be harder for you to accept any evidence that comes to actually support the weird claim. So you got to have balance. I think somewhere in the middle is a good place to be. You know, you're not falling onto either extreme. You're just being balanced and mature about it, and you're giving yourself time to look into things properly so you don't hurt your own cause. This child sex trafficking thing, it is not something to be messed around with. It is not something that's just some fringe, interesting theory that people have. You know, it's not one of these, you know, do UFOs exist kind of things. And there are people, especially in the fringe Christian community, who try to put it in that realm. It's not. It's not. And I would say anybody who's acting like it is, that is somebody to not follow. My own personal recommendation. I don't think people like that can be trusted. I think people who are in it just for themselves and they don't care about truth, they don't vet their own posts at all, or if they make a mistake, you know, they just don't handle it well. I mean, you can see it. You can see it a mile away. These type of people are really transparent. I don't care who it is. That's not a person to follow. If I ever get like that, I'm not a person to follow. If I ever get like that, if I for some reason just start getting immature about it and I don't vet my sources, and if you try to correct me and I get all angry at you, or you know, blast you online, or you know, whatever, I just don't handle it well, then I am not someone to follow at that point. I would rather you search for the truth and actually be, you know, have a good relationship with Jesus than be one of my little followers that, you know, you'll support me no matter what I do. That is not the relationship we have here. All right. It is not. I am here to serve you. All right. I first and foremost want to be a servant like my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. That's what I want to be. I want to set my own pride aside as much as humanly possible. I want to not care about my own ego or my own self-image as much. I don't want to care about that. I want to be a servant to you. I want you guys to be my life's mission. You know, I want to live my life in servitude to you guys, because Jesus says, that, when you were sick, you visited me. When I was hungry, you fed me. All of that stuff. Why is that? Because they said, well, when did we do that? When you did that to the least of these. Now, I think he was specifically talking about children, but I think that, children, Christians, even Christian adults, we all have the Spirit of God in us, right? If we're truly reconciled to God, His Spirit lives in us. So that means when I'm serving you, in a way, at least through the eyes of Jesus, I'm serving Him as well. I'm serving Him, and I want to do that because he died on the cross for me. The least I can do, He gave up His life for me. Least I can do is give up my life for Him too. And if that means a physical life of servitude, or if that means martyrdom at some point, then so be it. He has given me so much. That's what I'm in this for. I'm not always going to be perfect at it, but that's why I said if I ever fall into a place where I start getting really selfish and thinking only of myself, then you need to quit following me, because I care more about your relationship with Christ than I care about my own image, or my own ego or my own pride. So that is really, really important. And I wish more Christian I don't even like the term Christian leaders. I think shepherds is fine, but you think about shepherds and sheep. The shepherd still serves the sheep. He takes care of the sheep. The shepherd's whole life is in service to those sheep. So, even though the shepherd is technically like the leader, he herds the sheep. He tries to instruct the sheep. But he's doing that in service of the sheep. So I think shepherd is a better word than leader. I don't like leader for like what we do in Christianity and ministry, especially. I really like servant. I think that's the best word for it. But like I would much rather hear somebody say, yeah, I like Josh Peck a lot. He's my servant. I would much rather hear that than he's my leader. I know nobody would ever use either of those words, but you know what I mean. You know what I'm getting at. That's not preached, especially in our culture today. It's more preached that, we're just kind of in this for ourselves. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people in Christian ministry that are in it for themselves, and they're in it to gain clout and to gain followers. And, maybe they'll serve their audience here and there, but what they're really concerned with is how popular they are, on YouTube or on Facebook, or how many followers how many more followers they have than somebody else. That kind of stuff. I'll tell you what, God cleans house. I've seen a lot of people lose their place in ministry because of that. I'm not going to get into names. I've seen people lose their lives. God takes this really seriously. You don't mess around with people's spirituality. One lie can destroy somebody's faith. One meme that you put out there that has something wrong in it, that can serve as somebody's example of why they left the faith, why they denied Jesus, because they see Christians as untrustworthy. You can destroy someone's faith for that. God's not going to take that lightly. And the last thing I do not want to have to stand before God and explain to Him why I allowed my ego to get in the way of Him and one of His children. That one of who he would have had as a child of His is now in hell because they were jaded, because I served as an example of the type of Christian they didn't want to associate with, and they thought that that's what Christianity was. Like, we have got to get back into this fear of the Lord thing. I don't think we as Christians really have a whole lot of that. We need to get back into that. Fear doesn't mean that you don't love the Lord. You could if you have a good dad, if you have like a good earthly dad, when you're growing up, you fear him, but you love him too. He's like your world, but you still fear him. It's a respect, and it's knowing that, if I step out of line, I can really get chastised here. I can really get punished. So, and when God does correct us, Scripture says that God will correct us, but it's for our good. He'll punish the world, and that's more of like a justice, vengeance kind of thing. With us, though, he'll correct us, and sometimes from our perspective it seems harsh, but it's always for our good. It's because He's being a good father. if we don't take that correction when he offers it, why are we even here? Like, what are we even doing? What's the point of the precious gift of life that he gave us? So we need to keep that in mind. I kind of got off on a tangent there, but I would suggest people go to dailyrenegade.com and become a member. We're trying to do more of this kind of work. We're trying to get more of this type of message out because the church is really hurting for it. The world is hurting for it. America is hurting for it. And you just don't hear this kind of stuff in church. That's why I personally don't even go to church, because I'm sure there are good, I know there are good churches out there, but I haven't found one where I feel like I'm really being fed. Now, I have ministry friends. There's a bunch of like YouTube videos from other Christian shepherds that I trust and I like, and me and my family will watch that stuff, and that is like our church. I also work in full-time ministry, so I'm constantly around other like-minded Christians. So, in a way, my whole life is kind of like church 24/7. There's no reason that, everybody should have that. You can do that in your own local community. I don't want somebody to feel obligated to have to go to a church building that they don't feel like they're being fed or that's teaching them wrong things. Don't go. That's fine. The whole forsaking the fellowship thing is just, don't get so jaded that you just be a complete shut-in and you're not fellowshipping with any other Christians at all. You're not talking to any of your brothers and sisters. We're not being a community because we're all just individuals shut in our own cage, self-made cage at home. That's I think that's more what it's getting at. So we're trying to build that type of community through Daily Renegade, and you can help by becoming a member. It's only $10 a month or $100 a year. I suggest getting the $100 a year because you get 2 months for free that way, and you only have to pay for it once right now, and you don't have to worry about it for a whole year. Hopefully the stock market will be up, higher by then, and people will start making, be able to make money again. But even if you can only afford the $10 a month, and you have to do it that way, that's a good way to do it too. There's also a donate page for Nathan at dailyrenegade.com. /donate, where if you want to donate to help Nathan, you can do that there. Your membership also goes to help support other ministries that we believe in that minister to the Jewish people, try to get the gospel spread over in Israel. Also a pro-life ministry, Created Equal, we support them, and then a children's hospital. So we're trying to help other ministries as well. But like I said, we've lost a lot of members because just the COVID thing. We actually have a form that people can fill out, when they cancel, so they can explain why they can voice any concerns that they've had. And 99% of the time, it's because they just can't afford it because of the COVID stuff. And so I get that. We are developing an app. We're also trying to make we're working to make the website a little bit more easily navigatable. Not that it's difficult now, but there's a couple things that are a little difficult. So we're getting all that worked out. But all this stuff costs money. Building this whole ministry costs money, and building this community where we don't have to worry about censorship. That's the main thing. Even though I'm putting this whole video on YouTube for free, I still suspect that it might get deleted. It might. I don't know. They deleted our entire YouTube channel that had 70 or 80,000 subscribers on it. They deleted that entire channel. 8 years just gone of like really good gospel-oriented stuff, just gone. They could we have a backup channel that's got maybe 1,000, 2,000 subscribers. It doesn't have much. That's what we're posting this on now. So our outreach has diminished quite a bit. So you guys can help by sharing the videos. If you can't afford a membership, you can still help. You can pray for us. You can share our videos. If you can't donate your money, you can donate your time. You can tell your friends about us and what we're trying to do and try to get them involved. All of that would be greatly appreciated. This is usually the place where I would go to members-only content. So when you get a membership, you get full access to our full videos. Everything we have available, full Peck reports, every show. We have like a dozen shows on there. We have a lot of shows. So you're going to find something that you like. We have documentary type shows. We have talking head type shows like what you're watching now, and everything in between. You'll find something that you like, no matter how old you are, what age you are, if you're a man or woman, whatever. You'll find something there. Whether you're really just more scripturally grounded and that's all you care about, or if you're really into the more fringe kind of conspiracy stuff, we really have it all. But just the one caveat to that, we when it comes to the conspiracy stuff, we try to be as careful as we can. So we won't shy away from any topic. We'll talk about it all. You're gonna be able to find Bigfoot videos on there, UFO stuff, alien stuff, but we're not like, oh, none of this is true. But we're also not like, oh, it's all true. We try to look at it just logically and just say, okay, well, this could be interdimensional Bigfoot, maybe. I believe that there are fallen angels and things, so why not that? Now I realize that we would have to show evidence if I really wanted to make that something I was trying to convince somebody of, which I wouldn't. I mean, to me, something like that, while I may personally believe in the possibility of it, I don't care if somebody else believes in it or not. It just if they want to, great, we can talk about it and have fun. If not, I don't care. It doesn't matter. So there's a lot of stuff like that. But dailyrenegade.com, go become a member now. Okay. All that aside, let's get into the rest of this. There are some actual things that we should be exposing, some real headlines. I'm going to show you some of those. Let's see here. This is a real headline. This was from, I believe, Slate. Slate has, I believe, 8 million readers right now. And these headlines, I mean, they're old. This is like a year ago, and they still have 8 million readers. So there's a large portion of the country that reads this stuff, and then they continue reading the publication. It doesn't mean they agree with it, but it's at least acceptable enough that they don't unsubscribe from Slate. They continue reading. Is pedophilia a crime or an illness? We've never quite known whether child molesters should be treated as sick people or punished as criminals. Again, that's from last year. That is incorrect. We have known. Now, these people, they think they don't know because they're trying to convince everybody that it's a disorder, but that's not true. We have known. We have known. It's evil. It's absolute evil. It's criminal behavior, and people should be thrown in jail. How can we stop pedophiles? By treating them like monsters. This is from 2012. So this has been going on for quite some time. 2012. So you see this attempt to make the criminal the victim. Now, imagine that poor child that has to read these headlines, the poor child that was raped and raped in 2012 and then now is, a teenager or maybe in their 20s. And they have to read these headlines that are casting the perpetrator into a victimhood light. Look at this one. I'm a pedophile, but not a monster. I'm attracted to children, but unwilling to act on it. Before judging me harshly, would you be willing to listen? The answer to that is no. The appropriate answer is no. We're not willing to listen because that is criminal behavior. Even if you don't act on it, you're still fantasizing about it. You're still attracted to the idea of raping children. And then they'll try to nuance that. They'll try to say, well, no, they're just attracted to children. They're not attracted to raping them. What do you think they're attracted to? What do you think it is about children? If they're sexually attracted, it's going to be a sexual attraction. They're attracted to the idea of sex with children. Of course, what else is it going to be? And so it's still now, okay, I would say, yes, it's still criminal behavior, but you can't prove that somebody has a fantasy because that's subjective. You would have to crawl inside their heads to really know that. If somebody has a fantasy and they don't ever talk about it, and they keep it to themselves, we would never know it. That doesn't make it right. It's still criminal. All right? It's still criminal. It's just we can't prove it. So people tend to think that, just because if they keep it to themselves, then it's okay. No, it's not. It is not okay. It is still criminal. It's still evil. But see, a lot of these people, they don't believe in the concept of evil that you and I as Christians believe in. They believe in this weird thing that, well, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody, it's okay. Why should that be the case? That's so strange. Just because it doesn't hurt anybody? For one thing, how do you determine hurt? You know, what if the child found out that an adult was fantasizing about him? Don't you think that would hurt the child? I mean, don't you think that mentally that would be extremely disruptive, to say the least? Of course that hurts the child. Then you might say, well, they don't have to find out. Doesn't hurt them. No victims. That child is still a victim. That child is still a victim in that person's mind. You know, Jesus said that, like, even if you look upon a woman with lust, you are committing adultery. Even if the woman doesn't know that you're doing that, you're just fantasizing about a woman that you see at the store or whatever. Even if the woman doesn't know that you're doing that, if you fantasize about it and no one else knows, that, in the eyes of Jesus, is still adultery. And it says that, and you're committing adultery with her. Now, she's not gonna, you know, she's not participating in that sin with you unless she's fantasizing about you too. But that is how Jesus looks at it, that you have now committed adultery with her in your own heart. That is still just as sinful as actually doing it, because it's not the action that matters when it comes to determining sin. It's not the action, it's the motivation, it's the want, it's the desire. You know, you have the desire, you are guilty of the sin, whether you act on it or not. Now, if you act on it, you're guilty of other sins because you acted on it. You know, you caused physical harm to somebody, so you're just piling up sins. But the sin of pedophilia, just the sin of it, the sin of being sexually attracted to innocent children, that is committed right when that desire enters the heart, right when an individual looks at a child and has a sexual feeling towards that child. That sin of pedophilia is committed. Do I think somebody deserves to die for that? I mean, it really depends. Are they going to act on it? I mean, how could you possibly say that they're not going to, or that they are going to? Again, we can't tell the future. That's why we have to err on the side of caution with this stuff. Now, if somebody actually perpetrates an act of violence against a child, then yeah, I believe, I think personally, I think the death penalty is completely appropriate for that. But so at the same time, you got this push that says they can't change their feelings. Yes, they can, because if they can't change their feelings, then they're not responsible. Then it's not really a sin. You know, that's what the culture is trying to do. They can change their feelings. They are responsible to change their feelings. They need to take appropriate steps to do that if they're having feelings like this. And then they'll say, well, you know, by stigmatizing, I hate that word, stigmatizing pedophiles. Most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. If you're stigmatizing pedophiles, then you're just creating a culture where they're not going to be willing to talk about it. Good. They shouldn't talk about it. Why would we want to encourage them talking about it? They need to know how shameful and evil that is. That is an extremely shameful thing that they should feel awful about, and that shame should drive them to change. If they are just willing, just open, just can talk about it, and the culture accepts it, they have no incentive to change. There is a thing called, let me find it. There is a thing called virtuous pedophiles, and this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Look at this. This is from Wikipedia. This is a Wikipedia entry. Virtuous Pedophiles is an internet-based mutual support group for pedophiles who acknowledge having a sexual interest in children and do not act on their attraction. Members support each other in trying to lead normal lives without committing child sex abuse. Trying. They're trying. Members share the belief that sexual activity between adults and children is wrong and always will be. They also work against the stigma attached to pedophiles. The stigma attached. The two founders of the group use the pseudonyms Ethan Edwards and Nick Devon. They do not reveal their true identity because they fear ostracism, as well they should, and hatred against their stigmatized psychological disorder. There's over 2,000 users registered, including parents of children, parents of pedophiles, and a few sex researchers. They are, according to this, they are the victims. They fear ostracism and hatred against their stigmatized. They said they used the word stigma twice in this little paragraph here. Stigmatized psychological disorder. They're just stating that it's a psychological disorder, like that's not up for debate. They're like Wikipedia is just acting like that's not up for debate. That is a debatable position. They're just treating it as like a sexual and not. They're treating it as a psychological disorder and not a deeply evil sexual perversion. Because of this, we now have 2,000 people registered. They're just openly supporting each other. Not to change. There's nothing in here that says that they are trying to change or they're trying to get help or they realize they don't want to. No, they are literally called virtuous pedophiles. As if such a thing could exist. A pedophile who's virtuous. You cannot be both. You cannot be sexually attracted to minors, to children, and be virtuous. It's not virtuous to only fantasize about children and not commit it. Not commit the act. You know, it's evil. There's nothing virtuous. But this is what our society is doing right now. This is how they're pushing it. There are real things to be upset about, guys. There are real things. This Wikipedia entry is a real thing that you can go up and look up right now. No conspiracy, no theory, no fringe thing. It's real. And our society has this twisted outlook on pedophilia that it's being accepted. And what have we said for decades? We have said for decades, all of this sexual civil rights stuff, it's a slippery slope. And now we live in a day and age where they say the slippery slope argument is a fallacy. You can look it up. Look up slippery slope fallacy. It is now an established fallacy. It's not a fallacy. All it is looking at past behaviors and predicting future ones based on things that have happened in the past. So we know these types of people, they never stop. They don't just get their needs with whatever movement they start, and then once they win, then the movement dissolves because there's no need for it anymore. That never happens. And usually, sometimes movements start out and they're good. The whole sexual revolution thing I think was ridiculous. I wish we still lived in a society where sex outside of marriage was shunned. You know, it was really looked down on in society. Because of just all the problems that come up because of it. But take some good things. Take for example, the women's civil rights stuff. When that first started, that was good. Okay? Yes, women should be treated as having equal value to men. All right? And however they want to express that. If they want a career, there should be no laws put in place saying that they can't have one. Unless it's something, okay. What I mean by that is there shouldn't be any law saying a woman can't have a career because a woman's place is in the home. Like, a law shouldn't force a woman. But at the same time, somebody will say that and say, yeah, but what about abortion? You know, if I don't get an abortion, I can't have a career. For one thing, yes, you can. For another thing, just don't get pregnant. Don't have the child. Don't engage in sex outside of marriage. What about rape? That's 1%, 2%, 3% of the cases of abortion are in a rape scenario. And this is how you know that the rape thing isn't even true to these people. Because if you tell them, all right, let's say I give you that. Let's say if it's in the case of rape or incest, then fine. You can have the abortion. Now, will you admit that the 97% of other cases shouldn't occur? They won't go with you there. What they're trying to do is point out a hypocrisy that doesn't exist in your argument. Anyway, so trying to get back on track here. These movements never stop. So when women's civil rights things happened, there was a lot of great things. You know, women should be able to vote if they want, all that stuff. Good. But look at what feminism has become today. The movement never stopped. Women gained their civil rights, right? The wrongs were righted. They got things that were only available to men, and they were equal in the eyes of the law. They got everything they wanted. The movement didn't stop. Now they're fighting for ridiculous things that don't even make any sense. And it's not about equality anymore. It's about superiority. Now they're trying to take things away from men, like men's rights to see their own children, a man's right to have their own child born. No, it's only up to the woman now. The man doesn't get a say in that decision whatsoever, even though the baby is half his too, genetically. Look at what it's become. These movements don't stop. So the sexual revolution, we've been saying, conservatives and Christians have been saying, this is a slippery slope. This is going to lead to the legalization of gay marriage, and then they're no, it won't. We'll stop it before then. They didn't stop it. Okay. Then legalization of gay marriage happened, and we're like, okay, now that you're redefining the term marriage, you're redefining what that word means. This is going to lead to the normalization of pedophilia. That's next on the list. And they all said, no, you're crazy. That's silly. That's a slippery slope fallacy. Look where we are. Look where we have been for at least 10 years, if not longer. Remember that one article was from 2012. We have virtuous pedophiles now. Look at this one. This is from Vice, a disgusting, disgusting publication. Pedophiles can't be cured, and it's dangerous to suggest they can. That's the headline. To even suggest that they can fix this, that they can have any hope at changing it, is dangerous. You're dangerous. You're a danger to these people if you suggest that they can change or they can be cured. See how they're victimizing pedophiles and normalizing pedophilia? It's sickening. And this is by far not the only one. There's a ton of these. Now, you'll never hear this, but there are actual studies, medical studies, showing that, yeah, they can be helped. Look, here, this is from Springer Link. If you want, you can check it out. But this is from Kleinplatz and Moser. Oh, those are the section editors. Excuse me. But can people with pedophile change? Yes, they can. And in this paper, reviewed in the paper, are challenges to the concept that pedophilia is hardwired during a critical period. The idea that all people with pedophilia reoffend, the idea that people with pedophilia are like boiling pots and that high-risk sex offenders are always high risk, the idea that pedophilia as an orientation is also redefined. Together, these observations and studies support a paradigm shift in favor of pedophilia being viewed as a treatable condition characterized by a persistent sexual interest in children and a failure to develop adult sexual interests. All right, now, this evidence here is suggesting that whatever pedophilia actually is physically, it can change. You can change it. It's not hardwired. All right? Now, I know that this is still saying that it's some kind of, treatable, like it's still a condition, where I would go further and say it's a spiritual issue, it's an evil, it's an offense against God. But look, if they're saying they're making the claim here, this pedophilia thing is not something that's hardwired. They absolutely can help it. So that supports my claim anyway. Even if they don't go as far as into the spiritual stuff as I would, and I don't expect them to. It's a medical journal. Like it's a medical thing. So, but they're saying that it can actually be changed. So there is evidence. But you know what happens? That went out and it got immediately attacked. And other scientists claimed it was like junk science, and it's not. You can look into it yourself. You can look into the thing. It is just as valid. I would say more valid than any other scientist that wants to say that it's hardwired, because they're not providing proof of that. They're going by pedophiles' own subjective statements and things. But yeah, there are a ton of part of the problem too is we have a severe lax system in how we judge pedophiles, like the law. They always get really minimum sentences. Here's an article: reduced charges norm in child assault. So in child assault, pedophiles get reduced charges all the time. Why should that be the case? Because that's the culture we live in. It's now a stigmatized thing, We need to realize too, what is the solution? The solution is we need to go make disciples of people. We need to turn this back into a Christian nation again, culturally. And I don't mean cultural Christian in the sense people say they're Christian and they're not. They don't know what that means. They just say they are because their family goes to church. That's not what I mean. I mean, we need to actually shift this into a Christian nation. And we do that by just doing the Great Commission that we're commanded. Jesus commanded us to go and make disciples. And this is why. When we don't do that, when we're lazy and we stay at home and we don't want to bother people and we don't want to offend people and, we want to be left alone and live our lives, well, this is the country we have now. If every Christian took more time to go out and made it their life mission to go preach the gospel and tell people about Jesus, and I don't mean just, once a week or, once a month on a missions trip from church, and even that, you don't even see people doing it that much. I mean, if we really made this our life mission, every Christian did that, this would be a Christian nation. We wouldn't have these problems. As a nation, we would be arguing about things like the timing of the rapture. What an amazing country that would be, right? If that was our biggest problem. But we don't see that. We don't see that because we don't take the Great Commission. Now, of course, there would always be people who are going to deny the gospel and reject Jesus, and fine, then we shake the dust off our feet and move on. But look at the explosion of Christianity in the first century with just the original believers. There weren't that many of them. And it exploded all over the world because there's real power in the gospel. There's a real Holy Spirit that convicts people and changes hearts. So we're not in this fight alone. It's not like we have to come up with like the perfectly crafted argument. Otherwise, it's not about, God will work through you. The Holy Spirit will work with you. He just wants you to do it. You should know what you're talking about, but you don't have to wait till you become some like scholarly expert. Go out and do it now, And but the main thing is, if you don't know something, you do have to be honest. You can't lie, and that's the main thing. You can't lie and say that you know something if you don't. If they bring up a challenging question and you don't know the answer, then you just need to say that. You just need to say, you know what? I honestly don't know. That is a good question. I'm kind of curious about that myself now. Let's look into that together. Maybe we can find something out. There's nothing wrong with that. You got to be honest, otherwise you're going to ruin your credibility and they will not trust you. That's the other thing about this posting fake memes thing, and I want to show this real quick too. In U.S., the decline of Christianity continues at a rapid pace. It's from Pew Research Center. Christianity is declining because we're more worried about other things. We're either worried about being left alone or we're worried about chasing clout online. We're not worried about dying to ourselves, picking up our own cross, being crucified with Christ, giving our lives to this mission of presenting the gospel to people and trying to make disciples. We're not as concerned with that. We're more concerned about posting memes that are sensational and seem exciting, and who cares if they're true, and if somebody calls it out, then we're going to call them names. That's what we're concerned with. That is such a problem. That is such an evil that has permeated the church, and we as Christians have allowed it to. Why don't we disassociate from these people? I don't understand this. I don't care if you've been friends with them for years. Why don't you disassociate with somebody that's acting like that? What your friendship is more important than getting people saved and appropriately representing Christ? If somebody doesn't appropriately represent Christ and they are not willing to learn or to accept any reproof or to work on it or to even look at your correction, if that is not somebody to associate with. That is clearly somebody who is in this for the wrong reason. They're in this for themselves. They're immature. At best, they're immature. At worst, they're just evil. There's plenty of people like that. But at best, let's assume the best, they're immature and they shouldn't be in any kind of role in leadership in Christianity anyway. Why don't we disassociate from these people? Even if they're not in a position of leadership, just somebody online that has 100 followers or whatever. Don't associate with people like that. There's no reason to. That is somebody to just give up and let God deal with. Pray for them. Always pray for them. Forgive them if they did something that made you mad. But, don't carry that around. But there's no reason. You're doing the church more harm if you associate with people like that. And you might think, well, I don't want to. The church already has so much division. There is one appropriate division. Truth over lies. All right? That is the appropriate division. Okay, it is not appropriate to divide over timing of the rapture. It's not appropriate. We all need to keep our pride in check on that one and on a lot of other things and say, well, this is what I believe, but I don't know for sure. So if you believe something different, I'm not going to hate you over it. We need to do that. Truth over lies. So if somebody is posting like a direct lie and they're just doing it, and they're not apologetic. They're not wanting to change. They're just going to keep doing it, and then they're going to try to blame you for it if you say something or correct it or whatever. Then, okay, block them. Forget about them in 5 minutes. Block them. Say a quick prayer. Pray to Jesus that they'll get their heart right with the Lord. Pray for yourself too. Pray, hey Lord, if I'm doing something wrong here, can you please show me that and convict me? Because if I'm doing something wrong, I want to make sure that this isn't me having an ego or me being overly sensitive. Can you please convict me? Do that and then just forget about them. I mean, if they're posting lies, you can't associate with them and expect that you're going to have any credibility to other people. I mean, you're trying to convince people that you know what's best for their eternal souls, that you know what happens after death, an unknowable thing. I mean, you're asking a lot out of people, right? When we present the gospel. We need to have as much credibility on our sides as possible. We need to be as honest and truthful as possible. We don't have time to entertain people who are just in this for their own benefit, in this for their own good, who are posting lies, because other people are going to group us all together. They're going to look at people like that and they're going to say, "Well, you guys are you can't even agree with each other on this stuff," and you don't even call out your own when somebody's clearly lying. You just all you Christians are the same. You're all liars. That's what we're gonna get. That's what we have gotten, and I fear that we have deserved it because, unfortunately, we don't police our own. We don't disassociate with people who outright lie. And like I said, I'm throwing myself in that camp. If I ever get to the point where I just start lying and posting just untruthful stuff and I'm not willing to be corrected, then I don't deserve any role in ministry that Jesus has graciously offered me. I don't deserve that, and I need to not have anybody following me then. Then people need to just say, "Well, bye, Josh. You were cool once, but this is terrible." And don't entertain. You shouldn't entertain that from anybody, not your own family, nobody, because nobody is more important than Jesus Christ. Nothing is more important than the truth. And that is the one division that's okay. Jesus said that he came with a sword, that brother against brother. That division, that's based on Jesus. That's not based on, that verse gets overused. A lot of people use that verse because, well, I can be just as mean and nasty as I want if this person believes that the earth is round because Jesus came with a sword. That's not what it's about. Jesus came with the sword. It's about Jesus. Families are going to divide over their belief in Jesus. One brother will believe in Jesus and the other won't, so they divide based on that. That is an appropriate division, and that is all throughout Scripture. There's always this separation between holy and unholy. So we cannot let people like this into our ranks. We can't associate with them. We can pray with them, but if they're not even accepting correction, you can't minister to them. If they're not accepting, you can't minister to them. The only thing you can do is pray that the Holy Spirit works on their hardened heart. That's all you can do. You don't have to think that you're any better than them. You don't have to have a nasty attitude about it. And you shouldn't. You shouldn't waste any time fighting with them. Try to reason with them if you feel like it might happen. But when they show you that they're just not going to be reasoned with, then you're done. That's it. And it actually can get into the realm of sin if you don't do that pretty easily. Okay, so there are things that you can actually do to mitigate against child sex trafficking. We really harped a lot on the posting truthful information. You have to do that. You got to post truthful information or don't post at all. At least say, "I don't know if this is true." So you can go on my Facebook. When I did like 2 or 3 posts about the WayFair thing, and I said, I have no clue. There's some weird looking stuff, but I have no idea if this is true, if this is an example of child sex trafficking. I don't know. If it is, then that's awful, and we need to get real information. Not just some meme about Tom Hanks and a picture of a glove. We need real things here. But we have to be able to admit that we just don't know some things. We have to get comfortable with that. We have to be comfortable acknowledging that in ourselves. Otherwise, you are playing to your pride. If you have the attitude, right now, I promise you, if you're mad at me because I'm saying I'm not sure about the WayFair thing and I think we need to be more realistic about it, if you're mad at me, you have a pride problem. There's nothing to be mad about. Like me, I'm not mad. The only thing I would be angry about with people who don't agree with me is if they're hurting the cause to actually help kids who are being sex trafficked. I do get mad about that, but that's because they're indulging in lies and they're actively hurting children in doing so. They're making it harder for people like me to do my job, and they're doing it for their own personal gain, so that does make me angry. What am I doing? What am I doing wrong by saying, we need to be more level-headed about it? Now, somebody might say, well, while you're spending all that time waiting around for information, kids are being hurt. All right, so what's the alternative? I just jump to conclusions and possibly draw a false conclusion, and then that's going to ensure they're going to be hurt for longer because now people can't take me seriously? It's a bad situation we're in here. It's a bad situation. Kids are being hurt. We don't want them to be hurt. We want them to be rescued as soon as possible. The only way to do that is through the truth. We cannot have even an ounce of lies. We can't have a single percentage point of lies. And if there's something that we don't know or we're not sure of, then we need to say that. There's nothing wrong with that. And if somebody corrects us, we're not allowed to get mad, all right? You just can't get. If somebody is being polite to you and they're I don't even think you should necessarily get mad even if they're being a jerk. If they're being a jerk but their correction is true, then okay. If you don't like the guy, then unfriend him, whatever. But don't get mad. I mean, so what? He hurt your feelings. He said a mean word about you on Facebook. He called you a name. Okay, I get it. He shouldn't do that. That's not very Christian either. But don't get mad about it. Who cares? I mean, seriously, grow up. But, just unfriend the guy, but take the correction seriously. So, but you're really, if you want to be just a good, honest Christian, you can't get mad when somebody corrects you. You got to be willing to accept that. And at first, it is hard. It hurts. It really does. Man, I remember when I first started going through this process about 5 years ago, maybe 6, probably about 5. It's hard at first, and it does hurt, and it's also easy to get caught up in going full force the other direction, where now you don't believe in anything. There's a danger there too. But again, it's like a muscle you have to work out. So now what I do is, if somebody corrects me, and if it's a legitimate correction, I go out of my way to thank them, even if I don't feel like doing it, because I know that if I don't feel like doing it, my feelings are lying to me. And you got to realize that your feelings are liars most of the time. Very rarely will your feelings actually be appropriate and proportional to the situation that you're dealing with. Most times your emotions are going to be wild and overreactive and either that or they're going to be just dead and underreactive. It's rare that your feelings are ever going to give you just a good, appropriate, proportional feeling about the thing that is happening at that moment. It's really rare. You need to look at your own feelings with extreme suspicion. That's what I do. You have to realize your feelings are liars. They just are. Why? Because they don't have conscious thought. You have conscious thought. That's why following your heart is such a bad idea. Don't follow your heart. Follow your head. And even that, you have to know your head's not perfect. Your head will get you, if you think logically, if you think with your head and not with your heart, it'll get you a little further, but it's still susceptible to deception. It's still susceptible to lies. But your feelings just aren't equipped for that. Your feelings are not equipped to guide you in that way. Your head's a little bit more equipped, but it's still not perfect. So we got to be real honest with ourselves about how fallible we all are. And I'll tell you what, there's nothing wrong with that. That's such a freeing thing, man. When I first started thinking myself, in those terms, there was a temptation to get depressed about it. But I was like, you know what? This depression, if I was sad about this, then it just means I'm actually pretty immature, because what am I sad about? That I'm not wonderful and perfect? Why would I be sad about that? It's just the truth, and no one really is anyway. So all I'm doing is I'm just admitting the fact, and then now that I'm conscious of that, now I get to improve. Now I can work on it. Now I can actually get better. And I have this ideal of Jesus Christ. I have this ideal that I can every day work towards getting closer to, getting better at. And that's actually a really freeing, good thing. I don't have to be enslaved by my feelings. I don't have to be enslaved by my pride or my ego. It's a really freeing thing. And I see so many people robbed of that, with things like the self-esteem stuff or just this obsession with authority. Like, if somebody is in a position of Christian leadership, you have to just accept whatever they say no matter what. And no, you don't. But you also don't get to be a jerk either. So there's a lot of middle ground with a lot of this stuff. But so that's part of what you can do. Another thing you can do, 68% of Christian men watch porn. All right, so I have to assume 68% of I don't know what the number is for women. I think it's about 50. I think it's 50 something. It's actually a lot higher than I thought it would be. But I have to assume probably about half of my audience watches porn. You absolutely, unequivocally, you are supporting child sex trafficking. I know you're not, emotionally supporting it. You don't believe that it's right. But if you are engaging in pornography of any kind, you need to know that you are supporting child sex trafficking, and for a variety of reasons. I can show you a bunch of article headlines here if I have them. Let me find them. Here's one. This is from The Hill. And by the way, both left and right-wing sources agree on this. Porn consumption is contributing to child sex trafficking epidemic. Let me see. There's a lot more. Here's another one. The connection between sex trafficking and pornography. Pornography undoubtedly perpetuates the commercial sexual exploitation of women and girls in America. There are girls who are trafficked through the pornography industry. Here's another one. The porn industry and human trafficking reinforce each other. It's from National Review. These are all over the place. Even things that aren't pornographic but are labeled as entertainment. Things like this, the 10 best TV sex scenes of 2020 so far. I mean, our culture is so inundated with sex. It's made sex a business. If you engage in that, you're supporting that culture. Look, I say it like this: as long as sex sells, sex will continue to sell. The second that sex stops selling, it won't sell anymore. The second that this culture, and it doesn't start from the top down. Change happens in the individual first. So as soon as you decide that you're not going to watch provocative TV shows anymore, even if you like the story, that you're not going to support this culture of sex, that you're going to find value in other things more appropriate that can't be abused like this, especially pornography. I mean, that is downright sinful. But as soon as you decide that you're not going to engage in this stuff, if enough people do that, these companies, if they know that there's no money to be made in sex because the culture just doesn't view it that way, then they're not going to keep. There won't be a market for it, so they're not going to keep doing it. They're not going to waste money trying to sell something that isn't selling. They will instead put their money in more wholesome things. And America used to be like that before the whole sexual revolution stuff. America really, it used to be like that. TV shows were a lot more wholesome and they didn't really sexualize things. But now kids are being sexualized in a lot of these shows. Let me see if I have it here. There's a show on Hulu. Yeah, look at this. There's a show on Hulu here called Drag Kids. 4 preteen drag queens come out for the biggest performance of their young lives. Can you look at how this little boy is dressed? And this is like some wonderful thing. He's in a dress. This is seen as like they're sexualizing children actively, and they're switching their genders. This is on Hulu, a very popular streaming service. Why are we supporting these companies? Why are we supporting them? Even that is because why does sex trafficking exist? Because there are people attracted to kids. So shows like that normalize that stuff, it's just creating more people that are sexually attracted to kids. It's just creating more for that industry to capitalize on. Pornography is, that is like, what, billions of dollars a year they make from that because people engage in it. Now, look, God will judge the outside world, but we in the church, what are we doing going anywhere near that stuff? I know we have physical urges. I get it. I'm a man myself. I understand. But this is one of those things you can learn to hate that. Don't let the culture tell you that you can't control it. You can't help your feelings. You're not going to be able to turn it off overnight, but you can stop engaging in it overnight. You can just decide to stop right now and never do it again. Now, are you gonna feel urges? Yeah. But you can learn to hate those urges. And your feelings will eventually follow suit. This is what it means when the Bible says the spirit needs to lead the flesh. Don't let your flesh lead your spirit. Don't let your flesh tell you that, you can't help your feelings. No, your spirit needs to lead that. Your feelings will follow suit eventually. What you need to do if you're engaged in this, stop immediately. And then start doing research and looking into all of the ways that people have been hurt by pornography, that children have been trafficked on Pornhub, even the biggest provider of pornography in the world. And there's multiple stories of children found on that website. Are there any criminal actions against them? Nope. It's shunned kind of, but it's pretty much allowed. And it's because people are still engaging in it. Keep looking into those stories. Keep looking into stories about what this does to women, how many suicides there are, how many women kill themselves who are involved in the porn industry, how many women get abortions because they get pregnant on a porn site and on a movie site or whatever, movie set, and they get abortions. I mean, some of these women have multiple abortions. So babies are literally dying. Babies are dying. Kids are being abused, all just so you can have your moment of pleasure. Once you start seeing it like that, man, I'll tell you, you start really researching that, and you continue on in that research, you will learn to hate it. You will learn to absolutely hate it, and that's where we need to be. You will, in a sense, in a good sense, you will start to hate parts of yourself, the parts of yourself that need to go. You don't need to hate yourself. That's not what I'm getting at. But we're all human beings. We all have parts of ourselves that need to go. That's one of them. And so that's what we need to do. Don't listen when they say that you can't change your feelings. Yes, you absolutely can, and you have a responsibility to do that. Let me see if there's anything else here that I wanted to. So that's something you can do actively. You can get rid of your porn addiction, or even just your addiction to TV shows that have sexually explicit material. Even if it's not pornographic exactly, but if it's sexually explicit, you don't need it. And look, I know, Christian entertainment isn't great. It's flat. It's not super entertaining. Most of it. Every once in a while you'll get something good, but most of it is just kind of dead. It's not entertaining. I get it. But what's more important to you? You being entertained, or you helping and you not contributing to sex trafficking and the normalization of pedophilia? What is more important to you? So if it takes all of us throwing our TVs in the garbage, I mean, whatever it takes, I mean, this is infinitely more important, isn't it? Who cares if you don't get to watch a TV show for a while? Do you think the kid in the cage being sexually abused every day is thinking that? Do you think they're thinking that at all? Like, well, at least Joe down the street gets his TV show that he gets to watch. At least he gets to watch Game of Thrones or whatever. No, they're not thinking that. They're thinking, oh God, somebody help me. That's all they're thinking. So we need to grow up. It's time to grow up. It's time to start taking this seriously and quit treating this as some novelty or some fringe conspiracy theory, some fun little interest that we have. You know, we need to quit treating it the way that we might treat Nephilim or UFO stuff or even multiverse stuff, you know. So like I said, I'm throwing myself in that camp too. We all need to wake up and realize exactly what this is, and we need to change it. We need to fix it. And like I said before, change does not happen from the top down. We're never going to get the government to abolish this in the U.S. We already have laws against it, and they're not enforcing it. That's not what's going to do it. Politics follows culture. It's not the other way around. Good example of this. Notice how everybody's eating healthier these days. There's this big movement towards eating non-GMO stuff, just eating healthier. That wasn't the government. When the government tried to reduce people's size of like sodas that they could get, everybody laughed and it didn't work. If anything, it just made people eat more unhealthy. But when there was an actual social movement, when there was an actual movement in the culture about eating healthier and there was more of a demand for healthier options, McDonald's started offering salads, real food. Non-GMO stuff organic is becoming like really popular now. That didn't happen from the top down. That was because individually people made a change in their own lives. They started watching documentaries. Were there some just garbage documentaries about that? Yeah. Were there some false claims? Yeah, there were. But they were easy to weed out. A lot of the information that came out was pretty good. And everybody jumped on that bandwagon because they made individual choices in their own lives. And now all of a sudden there is a market for healthier options. So now you got more grass-fed stuff. You got more humane animal, like farming and like animal places. I don't know what they're called. But farms and stuff, they're more humane practices and how they butcher chickens and cows. And, that there's a market for that now. That's all PETA had to do. PETA for decades kept petitioning the government, going to the government, trying to get the government to do all these restrictions and laws, and it really didn't do a bit of good. People will always find a way around the law. What did it is now is getting rid of the market. The farms that have just ungodly practices on how they treat their animals, those are starting to go under now because there's not a market for it as much. People are going to more organic farms where animals have room to run around and they're not stressed out all the time because they're realizing organic even tastes way better. It's just better food. It's not only healthier for you, it tastes amazing. It's really good because we've been conditioned on this like commercial stuff forever. That's not good. So there's more of a market for that. So notice how everybody's like eating a little healthier and a lot of change in a pretty short amount of time. It hasn't been that long. Pretty short amount of time. A lot of change has happened. There is no reason that can't be the case with child sex trafficking and sexual exploitation of any kind. There's no reason that can't happen. It's going to take the individual. It doesn't mean go storming Washington, D.C. That's not going to do any good. You can sign petitions if somebody's trying to get a law. Okay, fine. But you can't end there. And that can't be all you do. I mean, it's basically ineffective. Maybe every once in a while some headway will get made with the government, but it's basically ineffective. The way to do it is through the culture. And that happens with the individual. So we need to share true information, real information, just like with the health stuff. And I know there were lies out there too. There was false stuff too. But notice that for decades there was false stuff and nobody took healthy eating seriously. It wasn't until recently that the real information started coming out and the truthful, verified stuff started coming out that people started taking it seriously. People have been trying to get this whole health thing, this whole health kit going since at least the 80s, I think even earlier than that. But as long as I've been born. You know, I was born in 84, so at least that long, but I think it was even longer than that. But it never really worked because they were putting out so much false, contradictory information. It was easier for everybody to say, I'm just going to eat whatever I want. Well, that's where we're at with sex trafficking right now. Because there's so much conflicting, conspiratorial, unverified stuff out there, it's easier for people to just go, I don't know how big of a problem that really is. I'm sure it happens, but it's probably not that big of a deal. You know, I'm just going to keep watching whatever I want to watch. They're not going to change their lives based on it. It's not going to be until we actually get real information out there and showing people, no, look, this actually is happening and I can prove it. And it's not through a meme or some claim of some stranger. It's like I can actually prove it. Until we get to that point, this problem isn't going to be fixed. So it is up to each and every one of us to go full force posting pure, like factual, truthful information, not crazy claims, but actual information, stuff that's true. Many examples I gave you today. That's a good place to start. I have a movie coming out very soon called Silent Cry, and it is all about child sex trafficking and the truth around it. And it even does get into some of the satanic stuff that is actually happening. And we have those from verified sources that we put in the movie. So when that movie comes out, share it around. I want that to get as big. Okay, if a really conspiratorial thing like Out of Shadows can get as big as that did, I want this to do 10, 100 times better than that. Not for my own personal gain. I'm not going to get into how the financials work for that, but no, it's just not appropriate for me to. I'll just say this isn't for my own personal gain. All right. I can't. I just have to leave it. I just have to leave it at that, and you just have to trust me. I'm not saying. I'm saying it because the more people that watch this movie, it's factual, it's honest. There are verified things. Every claim that's made, we put up articles and video clips of sources, and then the things that can't be verified, if a person is just like saying, well, I think it could be this or it could be that, they're honest about their opinions on it. I tried everything I could to make this just honest, but it's also like really interesting. There's stuff in there that you're not going to find in any child sex trafficking documentary. I've seen them all, and I've done everything that I can to make sure that I'm not just repeating information. So you're going to want to see that movie, and you're going to want to share it around. And I think it's going to come out in a couple of months, hopefully. It's the biggest thing I've ever done. It's the most important thing I've ever done in ministry, and I think that it actually can help if we all work together and get it out there. So that's something else you can do. I'm going to work to get it on Amazon. We're hoping maybe we can get it on Netflix, but I don't know because it's Christian. It's a Christian movie. I mean, everybody in the movie is Christian, so that might tell Netflix, we don't want to have anything to do with it. I don't know. We'll say we don't want to offend anybody with your Christianity, but we'll put movies about gay Jesus. So the reason that we're going to places like Netflix and Hulu and these companies is because that's where this message needs to be heard the most. People who are going on Hulu and watching drag kids, they need to watch this documentary and see how harmful that stuff is. People who go on Netflix to watch a gay Jesus movie, they need to see this movie there too and watch it. That's exactly the audience that needs it. That's why we're going to these companies, and we're going to try to get this to be on every platform possible. It's like I said, like if I was invited to like a New Age conference and I was allowed to say whatever I wanted to say, I would go and speak. That's why I've appeared on shows on like History Channel and Science Channel and all of these channels that post a bunch of stuff that I think are just outright lies, like Ancient Alien stuff. But I still go on those shows and do it because that's the audience that needs to hear it. Now the problem is a lot of times they do edit my stuff down quite a bit. But if I happen to say something that's interesting and somebody who's like a big Ancient Aliens fanatic, they see Josh Peck there and they say, "Oh, that's interesting. I want to look up that guy's book." And then they get Second Coming of the New Age or something because they looked me up, and then they become a Christian over it. Well, great. Then it was worth it. So that's what I hope for. That's why I say it's not. If I was in it for me, then I wouldn't do those shows because I'm not getting anything out of it. I'm really not. They don't pay me to do it. It's a big inconvenience. I'm usually out, I'm away from home for 2 or 3 days. I'm interviewed for hours on end. It's exhausting. And then they end up using 20 seconds of what they got from me if I'm lucky. So I don't get paid for any of it. They'll pay for my travel, but I don't have any interest in going to, it's usually in like California or like Arizona. It's just places that I don't really have any interest in going. I'd rather just stay at home, if it was me. I don't really like traveling all that much, but I do it I'm not going to stop doing it just because I'm not getting anything out of it. It's not for me. I'm doing it because I'm trying to serve other people. And if there's any chance that somebody might see that and actually get something from it, then great. That's what it's for. By the way, I actually learned that from Tom Horn. There's this kind of view of Tom sometimes that like he loves the spotlight or something. He doesn't. He doesn't at all. He hates it more than I do. He actually told me in a private conversation. Maybe I shouldn't even say this, but he told me in a private conversation one time that if it was just up to him, and what he was doing wasn't helping other people, if it was just up to him, he would stay at home and he would just stay at home and ride a tractor all day. He would take care of the horses at the farm, and he would just do farm stuff all day. He wouldn't go and travel and speak and be on TV, and he wouldn't do any of that. He does it. The only thing he enjoys about it is that it services other people because he's got a servant's heart and he wants to serve other people and it really helps people. So even though he doesn't like doing it, he's willing to do it because he's not put on this earth to just indulge in things that he likes. He's put here to serve other people. And so, when I first met Tom and found that out about him, that was really impactful on me. And so I just, that hit me, and I was like, man, in doing Christian ministry, I want to be like that. I want to do that. So that's what I strive to do, and I really think that we as the church would do a lot better and serve Jesus a lot more effectively if we all had that attitude, and if we all took it upon ourselves to do what we have to do in our own lives to mitigate these problems, to work on ourselves. That really will fix so many problems, not just sex trafficking, but just all the problems in the world, just the hatred and the pride and just the jealousy and greed and all of that. All of that is fixed by just people working with Jesus on an individual level and just being honest about their own problems. Being self-aware, being honest about their own problems, being open about that, like I have today, and I've tried to, I'm not perfect at any of this, but just taking it upon their own personal responsibility to use every day as an opportunity to be a little bit more Christ-like than they were the day before, to learn. And it's not an act. That's the thing. You learn to do it. It's like working out a muscle. It's not you're putting on an act. Don't do that. That's a lie. Then you're less Christ-like than you were. Don't put on an act. It's got to be real, but Jesus will absolutely work with you. That's part of what he's there for. He wants you to be more like him. He wants you to be his child. And he likes helping people. He likes helping you. He likes helping his children through that. Just like if you have kids, you know how much satisfaction you get out of helping your kid do something, and then they do it. And they do it right. I mean, how amazing that feels. Well, there's a reason that God gave us that example. There's a reason that that type of thing exists. We have it because that's how God feels about us. So let him help you, and be humble enough to admit that you're not perfect, and you do need to work on things. You do. I do too, and you always will. But the world would be a lot better place if everybody would just do that. Again, what if the only thing that we had to argue about was the timing of the rapture, but we still loved each other anyway? Even when in our culture, when sex wasn't so commercialized the way it is today, the sex trafficking problem, I'm sure it existed. I'm sure it would happen, but there wasn't as much of a demand for it as there is today. So it's a much bigger problem today than it was back then. And it was probably a lot easier to spot back then because it was so rare. So it was easier to spot anomalies. Anyway, so individually, we owe it to Jesus first, each other second, ourselves last. We owe it to all those things to work on ourselves to get better, get more Christ-like, and get rid of your pride. Get rid of your ego. That is the thing that is going to send you headfirst into destruction every time. That is the main thing to really work on getting rid of. The rest of the pieces will follow. If you do that one thing, just do that one thing. Just get rid of your pride. Get rid of your ego. You do that one thing, the rest of the pieces will follow. And things will make more sense. All right, we'll call it good there. Again, this is typical of what, maybe not the subject matter, but this is kind of typical of what a full Peck report is. Usually I take like 2 stories and talk about 2 stories, so the structure of this one was a little different. But, usually there's a lot of content, a lot of, I hope, good information for you that's helpful. So, again, you're getting this one for free, but it would be great if you would go and become a member at dailyrenegade.com. Also, if you're a chronic pain sufferer like I am, if you need some kratom's an herb that really helps with pain so you don't have to be on narcotics and stuff. We have all of that stuff at dailyrenegade.com. It's on the top toolbar. We have kratom, we have CBD, really good CBD. All that helps. It can help you sleep, helps with pain. So we have all that available. Even buying that stuff from us does help. So all of that stuff. We have merchandise available if you're, I don't really put, it's good merchandise, if you want a shirt or a mug, it's good. I normally just don't, I don't really pitch that too much, because I don't really see how like a mug or a t-shirt is helping anybody, but it's there if you want it, there's nothing wrong with having it. If you want a Daily Renegade shirt or something, we have that available too, at dailyrenegade.com if that's of interest. So yeah, please, but the main thing, please go become a member. If you can afford to do so, the $100 a year is definitely the way to go. Again, you get 2 months for free that way. You just do it once. You don't have to think about it for a while. And you're not only investing in your own membership, you're investing in our ministry, and you're investing in 4 other very good ministries too. So you're doing a lot of good. Like a lot of help can come from just that one $100 payment. So I would ask you to do that. If you can't afford to do it, please keep us in prayer. Please pray for me that I don't ever go outside of God's will and do some crazy dumb thing, that ends up hurting the ministry or just deceiving people in some way. I'm human. Everybody is. So we're all susceptible to that type of thing. But that's also why I say that it's a good idea to let people correct you, because it's iron sharpens iron. We all need to be accountable to one another. So I'm accountable to you, and I need to know that if I put out something false, I'm going to get called out on it. So we all need that. That's what part of being a community of like-minded Christians is all about. That's how we can all help each other as a community. And that's really how we fellowship too. That's why the Bible says confess your sins to one another. So that's why I'll confess to you. I've definitely been prideful before. So is everybody. So we all need to help each other through that. And I think that's a good thing. And you know, we create a lot of trust. We create a closer bond through that. Imagine if the world saw a community that they were able to correct one another and not get mad, and they loved each other for it even more. That would be so appealing to the world, because the world's not like that. The world, everybody's in it for themselves. Everybody's out for themselves. Everybody's trying to blast everybody else because they're trying to make themselves look better. Everybody's selfish. I think we could do the world a lot of good if we could show a good example of how it's supposed to be. All right, everybody, we are 2 hours in, so we're going to call that good for today. Thank you all so much for your support, for watching, and for sharing this video, and for keeping us in prayer, for being a member if you are a member. We love you all. Everybody here at Daily Renegade loves you and appreciates you all. Thank you so much. And until next time, there's that website one more time. Until next time, take care and God bless.